So welcome everyone to the 2021 analyst meeting. This is the last session. Please toggle to your preferred language with the globe icon on your Zoom screen. And please send in your questions in the Zoom chat box. Type in your name and your company, and the moderators will ask the questions for you. So this is the last portion of the analyst meeting. We'll hear from INTOUCH executives. First from Kun Anek Pana Apichon, who is our CEO. And then you'll hear from Kun Kim Siri Chai, who is our CFO. And last, you will hear from Dr. Narongpon Bunsong Paisan, who is our Vice President, Venture Capital and Business Development. So if we are ready, the floor is yours, executives. So a very good afternoon, analysts. I hope we'll meet in person in our next analyst meeting. Can we have the slides, please? So I'd like to start our presentation with the results from 2020 of INTOUCH. So let's look at the shareholding structures of INTOUCH Holdings. As you can see, that Gulf is now holding 15% of the shares. So the second largest from Singtel. And so far, there has been no changes in management or any involvement at the board level. So Gulf has not nominated any positions in. So the performance last year on the share price, we have TSR at about 2.5%, which is actually higher than the set index, which is minus 8.3%, and we outperformed the set index. And as you can see, that it's about NAV, the gap is about 17%. Which you can see the 40% plummet is actually during the first outbreak of COVID. Then you can see the discount to NAV. I think it's a result from the entrance of the Gulf as shareholders. So as in terms of performance in 2020, in comparison with 2019, the performance is considered flat. The contribution from AIS has decreased from 1.3 billion because of the decrease in revenue, 5.1%, and cost of service is actually maintaining and stable. However, there are expenses on depreciation from the licenses and network that we have invested, and also the decrease in marketing expenses. As for contribution from Thaicom, comparing to 2019, it has increased to 1.1 billion, and it was in minus 900 million because there is a repairment of the satellites. But in 2020, there is a revenue from which is the compensation from the orbit of Thaicom 5. In 2020, we have announced the dividend payment at 2.5 stang, and just recently been announced 1.5, which is 4.4% at the 57 baht per shares. So after we have the dividend from AS and Thaicom, there has been a deduction of corporate expense, not more than 400 million baht. And the rest has been passed through.
So this is the chart for the direction of INTOUCH for 2021. There's not much change here in the chart. We're still investment company focusing on TMT and digital businesses. The target that we have set, the two key targets, is to deliver TSR not less than 2% above market annual above market, and the other key is that for our NAV port to reach 320 billion by 2025. It is quite challenging because considering the current NAV is about 220 billion. So in order to achieve the targets, apart from managing the assets under the portfolio, we also have to look at the growth, whether in terms of merger and acquisitions or VC that we are investing in. In relation to growth on venture capital, Mr. Narongpon will be touching upon that topic. But mainly for asset management, we have to admit that AS and Tycom has contributed to our portfolio more than 90% of INTOUCH's portfolio. So in order to strengthen the growth of the subsidiaries is continue to be the major key factor, whether to manage the business of the company, to transform our company to correspond to the new technology. So under the current asset, I think AS and Tycom both, if by mentioning one before another doesn't mean that they're less important from each other. But for AS, we think that the distribution is one of the points of concern. We have to look at to handle the dispute that we have for Tycom. The dispute that we have with the government sector is another key issue that we have to look into. Also in terms of cost and management, in terms of the efficiency, both AS and Tycom, they are require continuous operation, and also they would need constant transformation into digitalization. Also in terms of Tycom, they would need to monetize the asset already invested. Tycom 7 and 8 will be with us for another 10 years, but for 4 and 6, Tycom will have to manage the transition, whether they will be involved in the management of this particular asset and how, whether as an outsource or as the M&A, or whether it should be in the form of JV. It does not really go according to plan under the 7 to 8 years that we have left, and I think that the government sector will have to also try to expedite the process and finalize the project. There are also a number of issues and things that have to be undertaken under this particular project. Also, we need to find new source of revenue or new businesses, and Tycom, I believe, have already mentioned that. Also, I think that for Tycom and AS, they are aware that they are well aware that the new technologies that may be coming in to compete with the current business that they are operating, we have to be constantly updated on that. So mainly, the three core foundations would be people, reputation, and governance that we are upholding and complied with all along. So in terms of growth, M&A in the past period, we do not have any significant investment or the impactful investment within the group company. Even though there is consideration given to such investment, what we did not go through with that. Currently, we still have considerations on investment as well, but the size will not be as much or as high as investors may be expecting. And also, the limitations on investing in startup in Thailand, Invent also expanded the investment to seek new opportunities in other countries, and also to try to and we do the venture as well, which will be touched upon by Kun Narongpon. So I am Narongpon. Good afternoon. I would like to just summarize the overview of Invent project for 2020. We invested in 25 companies. In 2021, we invested in additional 5 companies. So currently we have the total portfolio value more than 1.3 billion baht, and that was also resulted from the new investment that we have invested in the 5 companies that I have mentioned earlier. Also, for follow-on investment, we have 25 million from that investment from last year. We already have exited 7 startups, which is Wongnai and Omniword. And of all the exits that we have, TIRR is about 29%. The IRR is about 29%. So on the chart on the right, those are the companies that we have invested in. The highlighted ones are those that are still active. For digital media and enterprise, we invested in 1/4 of the total market, and also digital life, fintech, e-commerce, and health tech. In 2021, we have another edtech company, which we have not declared just yet. Also, in terms of portfolio, in 2020, it was a very challenging year for us for startups, whether in our port or those outside our port, because they are not all faced with COVID-19, also lockdowns and government measures for prevention of disease control. So there are companies that may not be growing as much as we expect. There are 4 out of 20 companies that are not having as sufficient growth, and we have already put that in line off. And one of them, the 3 of them, we're still keeping a closer look on that. So we assisted a startup in terms of development, finding client base, and so on and so forth, also to try to find partners for their business expansion. We also provide consultation and nurturing services, whether in terms of legal side, financial and accounting, and we're trying to see consultant to assist them in their operation of business, and we also provide knowledge sharing with our startups as well. But of course, there are some startups that have been growing very significantly during the COVID-19 crisis. For example, the insurtech, telemedicine, or companies involving in e-commerce businesses. They will be growing. They have grown more than 100% over the last year, and the growth, there's a mixture of rate of growth from 30% to 80% in terms of revenue. For value creation, whether for AAS Thaicom, we are trying to leverage the investment that we have already invested to try to optimize for both AAS and Thaicom, whether in terms of new market, new customers. We have used the company that we have invested in to basically try to create new market. For example, SME segment, the customers in the SME segment. And also we have leveraged the expertise of the startups to try to tap on or to try to explore in the relevant market, for example, in the cybersecurity market, in innovation, for example, telemedicine or health solutions, that we also collaborate with them to provide service in our group of companies. So this is the investment theme. Before going into the detail, I just would like to touch upon the investment thesis of INTOUCH. We focused on expanding or scaling up the core business that we have at the moment. We are trying to build upon the current business that we have or expand to business that are related or what we call adjacent business. We do not have the policy to diversify our businesses. So what we focus on in the investment theme in the past year is to digitalization and digital solution. So this is something that we consider as value-added service, and it is appropriate for it is basically the over-the-top application that is applicable and compatible to 3G and 4G networks. But in the near future, we have to also explore other solutions and also other vertical solutions relating to 5G technology, and that is also a global trend at the moment. They're trying to commercialize the application on the 5G network. It will not be only the over-the-top application or only value-added application, but we perceive that as a new business opportunity for INTOUCH Group as well. For new business, We may not be declaring this publicly, but for new businesses, we are still trying to find joint venture partners from other countries to try to localize them into the Thai market. And we're still trying to find businesses like AI, big data, cybersecurity companies, or acquisition opportunities for Thai companies. We're still looking for those partners, and also for corporate venture capital, we're still exploring startups and tech companies that are working in 5G related businesses. From 3G to 4G is quite different from 4G to 5G, because in the past we have explored tech companies that work relating to 5G technology, both in Thailand, in Southeast Asia, and we found that there are very minimum target companies. That is one of the reasons why we want to invest in VC fund in order to expand the geography coverage to those areas that we are not reaching just yet, especially for those areas with 5G technology in application higher than the current rate in this region. And we have scanned the market and we pick certain funds already. So in the next program, in terms of venture builder, that is one of the tools that we think would be something that we will be working on in the future. And I will also go into detail at a later stage. Our project, we just declared that 3 weeks ago, and that is the Invent Builder. So this is the detail of the VC fund investment. We have scanned the number of funds that are available in the market at the moment. And we are now trying to seek the fund that invested in emerging technology in China, Korea, Israel, Japan. And we have shortlisted these funds, and we pick one in Israel. We have not executed the agreement, but once the agreement is executed, we will be doing the public announcement. The purpose of investing in the fund, apart from the financial returns, we also see that it is a partnering opportunity and also the new flow for investment in the tech companies that work in relation to 5G technology, and we can also explore that for our business as well. So for venture builder, our goal is that we are looking for the new business opportunities that may not have the target company just yet. What we're looking for now is basically the first program, the venture builder program that we're implementing in 2021, and maybe further to, and maybe continue to 2022. That would be in relation to health technology, because the incumbent player in the health tech company may not be really tech savvy or entirely digitalized, and the tech startups themselves are quite limited in numbers as well. So that is the opportunity that we think is a decent opportunity for us to join the health tech companies. And we are in the first phase of trying to seek talent to join us in this project. And after 12 to 15 months, we are looking or expecting that we will have a new tech company that we hold the shares as a strategic shareholders.
So let's proceed to Q&A. So may I remind you, you can send in your questions in the Zoom chat box. Please start with your name and introduce yourself, where you're from. The first question is from Kun Pisut from Kasikorn Securities. So the question from Kun Pisut has 4 questions. First question is about the startups in your VC portfolio. Which ones have been hit hard by the economic crisis? And what are the angles and how was it impacted? And the bad ones, have you set aside some impairment? So those that were affected from COVID-19, for example, Pure Power, that has conducted debt crowdfunding for actually the providing bonds. So I think this is one of the 4 that we have lined off. And another bad ones that were affected, or actually positive ones that has positive impact, is actually insurance, e-commerce, or some startup business which is related to media. We thought it was gonna hit, would be hit hard. For example, YDM, the revenue last year grew really well. For Invent portfolio, we now conduct our business, operate on the fair value basis. So the value of the company that increases or decreases will reflect on the INTOUCH balance sheet. For example, Pure Power, we have revalued it based on the fact that it was affected by the economic crisis. We have marked to market with this, and also other assets as well. So you can see that in general, last year, the Invent portfolio did not have extensive growth. I think it's a result from the economic that was impacted by COVID-19. So it seems to me that you value diversification through VC is quite slow. Have you ever thought about investing in business other than startups? For example, the successful investment stories of BTS over Curry or Golf over INTOUCH. So if you analysts remember, we actually cut the investment of VC fund of 200 billion annually, and we don't even meet that cap. And in terms of that was a previous investment policy, and but currently today we have more flexibility in investment. I think for activities last year and and forward, I think we'll have more flexibility in spending and investment, and particularly in startups. We are more open through other types of investment in the format of M&A. So I think we want to try to aim actually through the 300 billion. So it's also almost impossible for us to rely on just the core asset, even though it's the main contributor. So the mechanism used as in terms of like M&A and VC fund, it is going to add to the achievement of the goals that we've set for 5 years. I think currently now the target that was set for 5 years, about 300 billion, is actually an aspiration of from all of us. So is it challenging? Oh, definitely. And aside from the growth of existing asset, aside from AIS, we are hoping that the venture funds and new activities, for example, fund of funds or venture builder, I think all these activities will enable us to be able to seek, companies that we can invest in, so we can grow, so we can achieve the target set. Aside from that, I think it has been proven that in our investment that in the first couple of years, we need to balance between investment and our dividend policy in terms of passing it through. And I think we're going step by step after we have proved what we can do. I think we'll have additional funds to be able to work with. Can you update the TV home shopping? What was it benefiting from COVID? Are you gaining shares or losing shares? When do you think it will turn net profit break even? Any plans to exit? And I'd like to answer the last questions first. So the investment on high shopping, so we took the equity method. Right now, the balance sheet for high shopping is now at the negative. So when we use the equity method, the investment is equals to zero. Is it going to affect dividend? It won't. And your question on when we're going to break even, I think daily we gaining about 1.3 million per day. So break even is 1.7 million. So we are trying to touch upon many business and different methods for us to have break even and to have cash flow positive and making profit. Aside from the revenue, we are also cutting down costs, whether it's delivery cost, which is actually the main cost of the iShopping business. Right now, we were able to negotiate with the shipping to cut down the cost. And if you notice, I think the break even point was 2 million. Now it's 1.7 million. So we are experiencing a deficit. So, but I think the exit opportunity, we are in the process of consideration, and we are waiting for the right moment and right time to exit. The next question. I understand that you're holding lockup on Taikon, which will end in September together with the end of concession. Do you have any plans to monetize your investment on Taikon? So as an investment company, we are open to all opportunities that exist. And in the past, I think Taikon is one of our targets that have companies in Thailand and overseas. But I think it's difficult to in terms of the 40% shares, but I think there's a lot that we have been getting people coming in. So once if we can release that, I think that we'll have more opportunity for negotiation, and it's also depending on the proposal and how that's going to benefit the shareholders. So to answer this, I'd say that we've always been open to all investment opportunities. The next question is from Kun Attaporn. Is there any health tech venture capitals? And do you have plans to issue publicly traded venture capital funds in Thailand that is separate from INTOUCH? So just recently, recent investment is the Dr. Ajazat, and we are exploring health tech startups, whether in Thailand or Southeast Asia or other regions. Last year, we connected with Israel, and there were many interesting startups. I think when you have a question about publicly traded venture capital funds in Thailand, we have embarked on the discussion, but I don't think we'll see anything concrete soon. We are going to have to collect more credibility, but we have already started to consider and explore the possibility. Next is the question from Kun Tititep from Kietnakin Patara on the 330 billion NAV. How are we planning to achieve that? So that has been answered. So the next question is, Invent is going to invest in startups, which is an international company or not? Well, in the past, we have invested in Singapore and in Japan, actually last year. Then after we have conducted fund of fund and VC fund in Israel, I think there is a possibility for us to be able to invest in tech startup in Israel as well.
So next question from Kun Padipak from Krungsri Securities. So the investment budget, is there going to be an adjustment from 200 to 30? So we, with the budget that we have, the cash on hand that we have at the moment, if we found like a sound investment, I think we have the flexibility to a certain extent to basically invest in that. It would also depend on the target that we found as well. Also, follow-up question from Mr. Pisut, the K Bank Securities. They were mentioning by Kunti in the session by AAS about the value unlocking at AAS level. Is there any further explanation on this? So we'll have to look up some information for that answer. And also there is a mention by Kunti as well that about the consistent shareholders return. Is there, can we expect the consistent dividend payout ratio or dividend per share for this year? Can we expect that? So the dividend that has increased by 75%, the question that we're asking the management is that once we adjusted the dividend, what is our expectation? And we would like that to be a sustained dividend policy rather than a fluctuating dividend payment. In terms of value unlocking, probably I'm not entirely correct. For AAS and competitors in the market, they are quite different. In terms of AAS, I believe they have assets. Currently, we are using debt financing, so the assets remained with us, and we are not using them for anything, unlike our competitors. So in terms of value, the hidden value, I think this is something that Kunti may be trying to mention. For dividend by INTOUCH, we are quite firm on pass-through at the moment. This is something that we can answer. So next question from Kun Attapon. Whether Gulf is a passive investor or if there is any guideline directions that they have provided to INTOUCH. As provided to the investors, Gulf is a passive investor. They have invested for dividend and they do not want any participation in management. They do not send any executives to us. For the timing that we have from Gulf at the beginning of this year is that the current situation, the situation will also depend on the new shareholders as well. So I think it is quite hard to predict, but in terms of the management, all of the executives are using their best professional efforts, and the shareholders, the current shareholders, you know, both of them, one of them has the expertise in telecommunication, the other one is a big player. So I think that both of them, they understand the context of working in Thailand. So, but as investors or as institutional investors and also individual investors, they should look at this situation as the win-win situation for investors. So for those of you who may have other questions, please do send us questions through the chat box of the Zoom application. Is there any other? We have the further questions from Ms. Maria from Maybank. So how is your investment in Ninja Van?
They but they are still making loss, but the traction is very, very good. And they can, I think they can raise fund as they expected in the last round.
May I add? I think the traction is okay. The revenue growth is was okay in 2020, and we expect a new round funding by the end of this year.
We have one more question from Provision. I think it's the startup, whether we have set impairment of startups. So as I have mentioned earlier, that we recorded or we itemized the investment in our venture fund based on the fair value basis. So in every quarter, we will have to consider the fair value of each asset that we have invested in. So those that have performed well and has positive last round funding, the value will be increased. But for those that have performed poorly, we will mark down the value, or will indicate that as a 100% impairment. That depends on the asset that we have invested in. Also, in each quarter, there will be the increase and decrease of fair value investment. You don't have to worry about whether we will do like over-assess or lower-assess, under-assess this particular asset investment. So there is no other question at the moment through the chat box. So investors and analysts, if you have any other questions, please do send us questions through Investors Relations channel. Thank you so much for joining us in today's question for presentation by INTOUCH, and thank you the executives for joining us today. If there is any mistake, any error at all, please accept our apologies and see you next time. Thank you so much.